There are moments when life pulls you into darkness, not as punishment but as preparation. Everything that once defined you begins to dissolve, the plans fall apart, the familiar faces fade, the old identity crumbles. You start to feel as though life has abandoned you, yet beneath the surface, something profound is unfolding. This collapse is not your ending, it's your initiation. The old self is breaking down so the authentic self can emerge. The loss, the silence, the confusion. They are not signs of failure but symbols of rebirth. You were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to remain in roles that suffocate your soul. The breakdown came because your life could no longer fit inside the container of who you once were. Every challenge that stripped you of comfort was clearing space for alignment. Every disappointment was redirecting you toward truth. Every delay was divine timing preparing the stage for your return, not as who you were but as who you were always meant to be. Your comeback is not about proving anyone wrong. It's about remembering your essence, the quiet power that existed long before the world told you who to be. You are not rebuilding your old life, you are rising from its ashes to create a new one that mirrors your depth, wisdom, and authenticity. So, when everything feels uncertain, don't resist it. The deeper you fall into the unknown, the higher you will rise in clarity. The universe dismantles before it rebuilds, and right now your soul is orchestrating your greatest return. This is your resurrection, not of ego but of essence. This is your comeback, not to the world's rhythm but to your truth. There comes a moment in every life when the ground beneath you begins to crumble. What once felt certain becomes unstable, and everything you built your sense of identity upon begins to dissolve. You look around, and the structures that gave meaning to your existence, relationships, roles, ambitions, routines, start falling apart. It feels as though life has turned against you, as if you're being punished by fate. But what if this collapse is not destruction but initiation? What if the chaos is not a curse but a sacred threshold calling you to rise into a higher state of awareness? The human spirit often resists transformation until it has no other choice. Comfort keeps us asleep. Familiarity keeps us small. When life is smooth, we rarely question our patterns or our attachments. But when the ground shakes, when everything falls away, we are forced to look inward. We are stripped of the illusions that once sheltered us, and we come face to face with the raw truth of who we are beneath the masks. In the language of the soul, collapse is not failure, it's awakening. The loss of control is the very doorway through which a deeper consciousness enters. When the structures of your life fall apart, it is not a random act of cruelty, it is a sacred dismantling. The soul dismantles what no longer serves its evolution. It breaks open the ego's walls so that light can pour in, the relationships that end, the opportunities that vanish, the sudden silence after noise. All of it is part of a divine reordering. Life, in its mysterious wisdom, removes the false foundation so you can rebuild upon truth. What feels like breaking down is, in truth, a process of breaking open. During such times, you may feel lost, even betrayed by life. But the darkness is not empty. It is gestational. It is the womb of your becoming. Within the void, something ancient and eternal is being remembered. The self that was shaped by expectation and fear begins to dissolve, making space for the emergence of your authentic essence. The suffering you feel is not meaningless, it's the friction of transformation. The caterpillar doesn't become the butterfly without disintegration. Similarly, your consciousness cannot ascend without first surrendering to the death of the old. When everything seems chaotic, there is often a hidden intelligence orchestrating your evolution. You are being initiated into a deeper awareness, one that can no longer be contained by superficial desires or shallow definitions of success. The old you sought safety in external validation, but the new you seeks alignment with inner truth. The old you survived through control, the new you lives through surrender. The collapse becomes the sacred teacher that humbles the mind and awakens the heart. In this initiation, there is no clear map, no guarantee, and no timeline. The path unfolds only as you walk it. You are not meant to rush through this stage, but to feel it fully, to let the ashes of what once was become the soil of what will be. The pain, the stillness, the confusion, they are not signs of weakness, but signals that you are in transition from one level of consciousness to another. You are being refined, purified, stripped of illusions, until only truth remains. So, when life unravels, when you find yourself standing amid the ruins of what used to be, know that something profound is occurring. The universe is not punishing you, it is initiating you. The loss is sacred, the silence is holy, the void is alive with potential. You are not falling apart, you are being reassembled according to a higher design. What feels like the end is the beginning of your rebirth, and from the wreckage of the old self, a truer, wiser, more luminous self begins to rise. There comes a point in every soul's journey when the old self begins to crumble under the weight of its own limitations. The identity you once wore like armor starts to feel suffocating. The roles, the titles, the ways of being that once gave you belonging now feel too small for the vastness stirring inside you. It is not that life has turned against you, it is that your consciousness has outgrown the structure that once held it. What you are experiencing is not destruction but evolution. The death of the old self is the natural consequence of the soul's expansion. The old identity was built for survival. It was shaped by childhood conditioning, societal expectations, and the endless pursuit of approval. It was designed to keep you safe, not to make you free. Yet as your awareness deepens, the same patterns that once protected you become cages. The mind tries to cling to what is familiar, but the soul begins to whisper of something greater. Something more real, more alive, more aligned. That whisper grows louder until it becomes impossible to ignore. And when you resist it, life begins to dismantle everything that no longer fits who you are becoming. The breakdown is rarely gentle. It often arrives as loss, confusion, or disillusionment. Things you once desired no longer satisfy you. People who once understood you now feel distant. The ambitions that once drove you begin to lose meaning. It can feel like your world is falling apart, but what's truly dissolving is the mask. The identity constructed from fear, expectation, and adaptation. The soul does not destroy without purpose. It dismantles what cannot carry its next expression of truth. In this space of unmaking, the ego panics. It fights to preserve its control, insisting that without the old identity there will be nothing left. But that fear is the illusion. What dies is not you. Only the version of you that was never complete. The death of the old self is the stripping away of everything false, everything borrowed, everything that was built to please rather than to express. It is the undoing of all the ways you abandoned yourself for acceptance. It is the collapse of illusions so that authenticity can take root. This process is sacred, though it feels cruel while you are in it. You are being emptied to be filled anew. The space created by loss is the womb of your rebirth. When your identity dissolves, what remains is essence, something pure, timeless, and unshakable. You begin to live not as a performance but as presence. You no longer chase meaning outside yourself because meaning begins to bloom from within. The breakdown, in truth, is a breakthrough. It is the moment your soul takes the lead. You may grieve the old self, and that grief is natural. Every death deserves mourning, yet beneath the sorrow lies a quiet liberation. The freedom of no longer needing to pretend. You start to see that you never were the roles you played, the opinions others projected onto you, or the achievements you clung to for worth. You are the awareness behind it all, infinite, creative, and ever becoming. The identity that dies was temporary. The being that emerges is eternal. When you finally surrender to this death, peace begins to return. You stop fighting the change and begin to trust it. The unfamiliar becomes sacred territory. Life starts moving through you with greater ease because you are no longer resisting its flow. What once felt like an ending reveals itself as a threshold. The death of the old self is not the loss of who you are. It is the revelation of who you've always been, waiting to be born through the ashes of what you no longer need to be. There are seasons when life begins to take away everything you thought you needed. The people, The plans, the dreams you once held so tightly begin to fade or fall apart. You may try to hold on, to fix what's slipping away, but the more you resist, the faster it unravels. It feels like loss, like betrayal, like the universe is turning its back on you. Yet, in truth, nothing is being taken that isn't meant to go. What is leaving your life is not rejection, it is redirection. It is life, in its quiet wisdom, rearranging your path to bring you into deeper alignment with who you truly are. When something or someone departs, it is often because it no longer serves the vibration of your becoming. The universe does not remove to punish, it removes to protect and refine. The path of the soul is not linear. It moves through cycles of creation and release. What once fit your spirit can begin to feel heavy, not because it was wrong, but because you've outgrown it. Every ending is a hidden act of grace, clearing space for what resonates with your next level of awareness. The ego mourns the loss, but the soul rejoices in the expansion. It takes courage to trust this process, especially when you cannot yet see what's coming next. The human mind craves control and certainty, yet alignment requires surrender. Divine redirection often feels like chaos before it feels like clarity. The job you lose, the relationship that ends, the door that closes. Each event is a message written in the language of transformation. You are being redirected not away from your purpose but toward its fuller expression. Life is removing what would have distracted, diminished, or delayed your growth. In the beginning, this can feel cruel. You may feel abandoned or question your worth. But with time and stillness, you begin to see the pattern, how every detour, every heartbreak, every disappointment quietly shaped you into greater authenticity. The relationship that ended taught you boundaries. The plan that failed revealed your resilience. The isolation you once feared became the soil where your truth began to root. Life, though mysterious, is always intentional. It never closes a door without opening another, even if that door leads first through the dark. Divine redirection teaches the soul to listen more deeply. Instead of chasing what once sparkled, you begin to sense what truly aligns. You start to measure your life not by how much you have, but by how true it feels. You begin to recognize that not everything that glitters is meant for you, and not every loss is a curse. Sometimes the rejection you experience is protection from a future that would have betrayed your essence. Sometimes what feels like delay is timing rearranging itself in your favor. The beauty of this redirection is revealed in hindsight. You will look back one day and see how perfectly the pieces aligned. The things you once begged to stay would have kept you small. The dreams you thought were yours would have limited your potential. Life was never taking from you. It was guiding you home to yourself. The deeper the loss, the greater the alignment that follows. The universe cannot fill your hands with what is meant for you until you release what is not. So, when life begins to shift, when doors close and paths diverge, do not curse the change. Trust that what leaves is making way for what will last. The redirection is not punishment. It is protection, refinement, and alignment. You are not being led astray. You are being led inward toward the truest expression of your being. Every ending, every silence, every detour is a sacred whisper. This way, toward your truth, toward your wholeness, toward home. There comes a stage in every awakening where light alone is not enough. The journey turns inward, and you are led into the shadow, the hidden, unclaimed dimensions of your being. It is not a punishment, but an initiation into wholeness. The shadow is where the unhealed, the unspoken, and the unloved reside. It is where the truth you've buried beneath survival begins to stir. The pain, confusion, the solitude that follow are not signs of failure. They are the sacred fire in which the new self is forged. When the soul enters the shadow, it dismantles illusions of control. Everything you used to rely on, your certainty, your image, your beliefs, begins to dissolve. You are forced to confront the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding, the anger you suppressed, the grief you denied, the fears you masked with ambition. All rise to the surface, demanding acknowledgement. It feels unbearable at first, as though you're being consumed by your own darkness. But within that darkness lies an ancient intelligence, quietly working to transmute pain into wisdom and confusion into clarity. In solitude you begin to meet yourself without disguise. There is no one left to perform for, no role to hide behind. The silence becomes your mirror, revealing what you've long refused to see. It is here that healing begins, not through escape, but through surrender. You start to understand that the shadow was never your enemy. It was your forgotten teacher. It held the emotions you were too ashamed to feel, the desires you were told to repress, the wounds you tried to rationalize away. By facing it, you reclaim your power. What once seemed like darkness becomes a doorway to integration. Pain has a sacred function. It burns away the false, leaving only what is real. Every tear, every moment of confusion, every night spent questioning your worth is part of the alchemy. The shadow breaks the ego's illusion of perfection and reminds you that to be human is to be both light and dark, strength and vulnerability, expansion and limitation. Through this tension, you begin to transform. You discover compassion where there was judgment, resilience where there was fear, and depth where there was emptiness. The self that emerges from this process is not polished but authentic, not idealized but whole. This rebirth cannot be rushed. The shadow reveals its gifts in its own time. You will stumble, resist, and grieve the identities that no longer fit, but slowly something shifts. The pain that once consumed you begins to soften. You realize that your solitude was not isolation but sacred space, the cocoon of transformation. In the quiet, you reconnect with your inner wisdom, your intuition, and the quiet pulse of your soul. What once felt like death begins to feel like renewal. You rise not as who you were, but as someone who has seen their own depths and chosen to love themselves anyway. Emerging from the shadow, you carry a new kind of strength, one born not from control but from surrender. You no longer fear the dark because you have learned that it too is divine. The rebirth that follows shadow work is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, grounded, and real. You move through the world with a quieter confidence, rooted in self-awareness and compassion. The parts of you that once battled each other now move in harmony. The light within you shines more freely, not because the darkness is gone, but because it has been integrated. And through that sacred integration, you become whole, a living embodiment of transformation itself. The greatest comeback is not the one the world can see. It is the quiet return to your essence after being lost in the noise of ego. For so long you may have measured your worth by comparison, approval, and external validation. You built an image, crafted an identity, and pursued success not always out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being unseen, unworthy, or forgotten. Yet eventually that illusion begins to fracture. The more you chase what is outside you, the further you drift from the truth within. The breakdown comes not to destroy you, but to free you from the prison of performance and bring you home to the purity of your being. The ego thrives on proving, competing, and defending. It tells you that redemption comes through winning, that healing means showing others they were wrong about you. It seduces you with the idea of revenge as validation, but the soul seeks no audience. It does not care about applause or recognition. It longs only for authenticity. When life humbles you, when everything you used to rely on falls away, what remains is what is real, not your status, not your possessions, not your image, but your essence. That is where the true comeback begins. Returning to your essence requires a dismantling of false motives. It asks you to stop striving for approval and to start listening to the quiet voice beneath ambition. The world might reward the performance of confidence, but the soul rewards the truth of vulnerability. When you release the need to prove, you rediscover peace. When you stop chasing validation, you begin to experience the freedom of alignment. The old version of you needed others to see your worth. The new version simply lives it. The ego seeks to control the narrative. It wants the comeback to be dramatic, to make others notice. But the essence moves differently. It does not shout, it radiates. It does not seek revenge, it transcends. The true victory is not in proving others wrong, but in realizing you no longer need to. What once wounded your pride now becomes the very space where humility and clarity are born. You begin to understand that no one can take from you what is already whole within you. The comeback, then, is not about reclaiming something lost. It is about remembering what was never truly gone. As you return to your essence, your energy shifts. You stop reacting to life from fear or defensiveness and start responding with awareness. You no longer need to chase opportunities, because what aligns with your truth begins to find you naturally. The ego demands force, essence invites flow. The more you live in authenticity, the more effortlessly life unfolds. Your presence becomes magnetic because it is real. You start to draw people, experiences and paths that resonate with who you truly are, not who you pretended to be. There is deep power in quiet authenticity. It doesn't demand attention. It commands respect through integrity. The essence-centered life is not loud, but it is undeniable. You begin to move with purpose rather than performance, choosing peace over proving and presence over praise. The comeback that arises from this space is sacred because it's no longer about outshining others. It's about illuminating your own truth. The ego wanted to win. The essence wants to evolve. The ego sought recognition. The essence seeks freedom. And when you finally let the ego rest and allow the essence to lead, you don't just make a comeback, you become whole again, untouchable by judgment, radiant in simplicity, and deeply rooted in truth. There comes a moment in every life when everything seems to fall apart. The plans collapse, the relationships dissolve, the dreams you once held so tightly turn to dust. It feels like the end, as though life has stripped you bare without reason. You stand amid the ashes of what was, unable to recognize yourself or the world around you. Yet within that devastation lies the quiet hum of something sacred. The moment before rebirth. This is the phoenix moment, the sacred threshold between death and renewal, where what once burned away becomes the very fire that gives rise to a new self. The fall is never random. Life dismantles what no longer serves the evolution of your soul, the identities you built, the patterns you repeated, the illusions you believed in, all must burn for your essence to emerge. The old self cannot follow you into higher ground. The more you cling to what is gone, the more painful the transformation becomes. But when you finally surrender to the fire, when you let the flames of truth consume what is false, you begin to sense a strange stillness. The chaos is not punishment, it is purification. Every ending that breaks your heart is secretly clearing the way for a deeper alignment with who you are meant to become. In the ashes there is silence. It is here, in the space between who you were and who you are becoming, that the alchemy takes place. The silence may feel unbearable at first, a void, a loss of direction, a questioning of purpose. Yet this is where the rebirth begins. The soul needs emptiness to create anew. Just as the phoenix cannot rise without first turning to ash, you too must let parts of your old identity die. The grief, the confusion, the surrender, all of it is the sacred preparation for your awakening. The fall teaches humility, the rise teaches wisdom. In losing what you thought defined you, you discover what cannot be taken, your resilience, your faith, your truth. Every heartbreak, every failure, every loss was an invitation to return to your essence. You learn that endings are never as final as they appear. Beneath every collapse lies a blueprint for regeneration. Life is cyclical. Destruction and creation are two sides of the same breath. The soul knows this rhythm intimately, even when the mind resists it. When the fire has done its work and the ashes settle, something begins to stir within you, a spark, faint but undeniable. You start to see light where there was only darkness. You feel strength where there was once despair. The rise doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds slowly, like dawn after a long night. You begin to move differently, with more awareness, more compassion, more authenticity. You no longer chase what is gone because you understand that nothing real can ever be lost. The phoenix does not return to what was, it soars toward what is becoming. The greatest rise does not come from avoiding the fall, but from allowing it to transform you. Every ending you feared was simply an initiation into deeper truth. The people who left, the opportunities that vanished, the paths that closed, all were guiding you back to yourself. The fire that once burned you now lights your way. The fall purified you, stripped you of illusion, and made you ready to embody your essence fully. The phoenix moment is the soul's reminder that destruction is not the opposite of creation, but its beginning. You are not the same person who entered the fire. You are something new, something more luminous, more grounded, more whole. From the ashes of loss, you rise not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be. Every ending was only a disguised beginning, preparing you to take flight again, this time from truth, from freedom, from fire. And so, as you stand at the edge of what was and what is yet to be, remember this: nothing in your life has truly been lost. Every fall was the universe carving space for your wings to grow. Every ending was a secret initiation, shaping the strength you now carry in your soul. You have walked through the fire and emerged not broken but reborn, softer in heart, clearer in vision, and unshakable in spirit. The phoenix does not rise to reclaim the past. It rises to embody the truth it discovered in the flames. And so will you. This is not a return to who you were. It is the becoming of who you were always destined to be. Step forward with quiet power, with faith in the unseen, and with gratitude for the ashes that made your flight possible.